It's time for today's travel and cruise industry news. With the latest from travel and cruises around the world, here's your host, Chillie Falls.
Good morning. Welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News Podcast for the 27th day of September 2022. And as you're coming in, I just noticed that Hot Air Tom was able to get a quick chat comment through. He's on a tour bus in Iceland. We're going to be talking to Hot Air Tom and Cindy here in just a couple minutes. Of course, today's main story is landfall in Cuba, Florida next. The Category 3, soon to be Category 4 Hurricane Ian achieved a landfall just a little while ago in Cuba and is now just about to leave Cuba. It's just going across the very western tip. Not a whole lot standing between it now and Florida. We'll be talking about that, of course, quite a bit here in just a few minutes. Canada officially is removing the travel restrictions as of Saturday, October the 1st. Norwegian Dawn skipped some ports due to high wind. That and a lot more here on Travel and Cruise Industry News Podcast with special guests, Hot Air Tom and Cindy this morning. Today is National Chocolate Milk Day. I don't recommend that you put rum in it like Hot Air Tom does. Wouldn't be my favorite, but I can drink a little chocolate milk on occasions. So, go mix some or go get some or whatever. Just celebrate National Chocolate Milk Day. If you're listening via the podcast, welcome aboard. As always, you can access the podcast via my blog, which is accessadventure.net, or wherever you get your podcasts from. All the big guys, just search for Travel and Cruise Industry News, and up pops the fat travel guy. And any day that I'm posting pictures and or clips like I'm going to be doing on today's show, you can always jump over to the video feed. Just go to the description of the podcast, and there'll always be a link to take you to the video feed. So, the first thing on the agenda this morning is Hot Air Tom and Cindy. And I'm going to have to tell you, folks, this was pre-taped because of the issues with Wi-Fi signals between the storms between us and them going into Iceland yesterday. We weren't even sure we could tape an interview. The video is not real good, but the audio seems to be okay. The video doesn't sync up with the audio, so just don't pay attention to what you're looking at. Just pay attention to what you hear from Hot Air Tom and then later on from Cindy. That's the important thing. So with no further ado, my friend and former fellow cruisers, Hot Air Tom and Cindy, here we go from yesterday, just shy of Iceland. And coming with breaking news from somewhere near Iceland is Hot Air Tom. Hot Air Tom, where are you over there in the world?
Well, by now we should be just somewhere maybe under 200 miles from Iceland.
Okay.
We are taking a little bit different course. Originally, we would have went up the English Channel up around Scotland to Kirkwall, which is an island just north on the north side of Scotland. And there's a storm that was brewing that the captain didn't think was safe for us to want to deal with. So we went the opposite way around the British Isle, and we're east of Ireland. And we've been getting further away from Ireland as we head towards Iceland, and we should be in Iceland around 6 a.m. tomorrow morning.
All right, so tell us what's the water like over there? I know it's been a little on the rough side.
Yes. Well, I'll walk out to the balcony. It's better now. but the sun still is not shining too good. It's still pretty gray. So I'm hoping to see the northern lights tomorrow, and I'm ready to hear the noise from this. Even the wind wasn't as bad here. So I can't see the camera here. Hopefully I'm pointing it somewhat, but the sea looks pretty calm here compared to what it's been.
Okay. So you had it rougher than it is now.
A little cold out here, though.
Okay. Well, yeah. Go back inside where it's warm out there. All right. So tell us what happened with your suite when you got on board the Prima.
This was a suite. It was just a balcony cabin.
Okay.
But it was interesting. And to be honest, when we got to check-in counter, I didn't know if the clerk was just a little incompetent or what was going on, but he was having trouble finding our room key.
Okay.
And he scanned our passports, went off to find the room key, didn't find it, came back and asked for our passports again. And I didn't know what the passports had to do with finding a room key, but a little while later he came back with the room keys and we were on our way. And it was probably, I'm going to guess maybe about 11 o'clock at this point. They hadn't started boarding the ship yet. So we had to sit in the waiting area for about half an hour until they made the announcement that we were going to start boarding. And with Chillie being in a wheelchair, that puts us in the first boarding group.
Right.
So we got on right away when they called us. And we went to our muster station to have our room key scanned, and then proceeded to the main dining room, which is named Hudson's. And I say that's Hudson's named after Emma's cat.
Well, that could be.
Actually, it's other. But had a nice lunch there with somebody else that we had met in the waiting area.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of took a little nap because we weren't in a hurry. And so the two ladies were talking while I was leaning against the wall there napping. And they still hadn't heard, at least we hadn't heard an announcement that the rooms were ready. And it was close to 2 o'clock at this point. So the whole thing seemed a little behind schedule. And so I thought, well, I'll go to the cruise next. I wanted to get a sapphire pin, latitude pin, and see what latitudes offerings they were allowing for this cruise. A couple of things in Sapphire are behind the scenes tour that I like, a dinner with officers, and a wine tasting. The wine tasting is the only thing that they're doing. The other two haven't resumed from COVID stoppage yet. So we booked that, and he didn't have any sapphire pins. Apparently, this is the third paid cruise, and apparently they were overwhelmed by sapphire people on the first couple of cruises, so they had no pins left. But he looked and saw I was going to turn diamond on the 29th. So he was nice and gave me a diamond pin instead. The diamond pin has a real little diamond chip on it, so that's sort of cute.
Yeah.
And once we were done there, we would go up to our cabin, hold the cabin up to the scanner, door opens, and I walk in and I'm thinking, this doesn't look very pristine like normally when you walk in. Next thing I know, there's a female steward running down the hall saying, "You can't go in there, you can't go in there." And as I turned around to leave, I saw there was clothes hanging up on the closet. There are sort of 3 closets when you enter the balcony rooms. The first one by the door is open, so it's good for coats and things. And then there are 2 closets, each with a sliding door. And you know what we're talking about? I'll just so you can sort of see
Yeah.
that was my stuff, and the other one's over here, and has a few shelves in there too. I don't think I had the phone pointed the right way, but anyway, turns out there's somebody living in our cabin, and I thought, how could they do that? How they just let somebody who was on a back-to-back, and from what I understood, that they gave him our cabin so he wouldn't have to move. And I thought, well, that sucks. Excuse the words, but and I wrote Katie Bird, the executive VP for passenger services, Saturday morning, just wondering how something like this could happen, because it makes me a little bit gun shy to even try to book a cabin. And so Katie was good and forwarded the job to the guest service manager on the ship here. And when we came back from dinner Saturday night, we had a message on the telephone from the guest service manager wanting to discuss the room situation.
Okay.
So apparently, this room that we're in is supposed to be a family balcony, which Cindy thinks it's a little bit wider than the balcony we would have been in. I can't. It's not longer, because there's no change in the. But I don't know if you can. There's a pretty good area between where Cindy's sitting on the couch and where the
Hi, Cindy.
where the computer is there.
Yep.
So maybe that's the case, but they didn't have anything higher up available. It was all booked. And I'm thinking it's too bad they couldn't arrange this a week or two ago before they gave all the bid upgrades away.
Yeah.
And put us like in a club balcony suite, or there were a couple of family suites that were semi-blocked by the slides, which I talked to Cindy about, and we would have been happy just being in one of those too, but that didn't happen. So,
all right. Now,
so at least I was happy I got an answer for why this happened. The guest service manager, when I called her, said that apparently the guy in the room must have some kind of health issues, which made it difficult for him to move.
Okay.
So they chose to do that. And that explains partially why the clerk at check-in had trouble finding our keys, because they had pulled them.
Yeah.
And the guest service manager said they had tried to send a message via the system, and apparently it malfunctioned, and they weren't supposed to issue the cards that they did, so we should have never had cards that got us into a room that already was occupied.
Yeah.
So at least I had a little understanding on how the thing happens. That made me feel better.
All right, now I have to ask you the most important question about your Prima cruise. Up to date, how many times has Cindy said, "I'm gonna kill him," so far on this cruise?
We'll have to ask her. What do you say, Cindy?
3 times.
3 times.
3 times. Not bad, huh, there, Tom?
I don't remember.
Better. Okay, so how's the food been?
Well, we ate at Cagney's the first night, and it was as good as ever.
Okay.
And we had a little teaser appetizer from in the Indulge food court from Q. I had one strip of their beef brisket, and it was so good, I thought, well, we need to come back here. We ate at Palomar, the new Mediterranean seafood place, the second night, and we weren't real impressed. Cindy had a fillet and said it was fishy tasting, and she doesn't like fishy.
Yeah.
I didn't like the texture of it. It was real smooth. She had it medium well, and for medium well, it was a little red, I thought.
Yeah.
But I had the scallops, and the scallops were fine. No complaints there. And we had some kind of mushroom appetizer, which didn't come out anywhere close to what we were expecting. We were expecting maybe like a stuffed mushroom cap, and this was one little dish. It was almost like a dip with like a chip type thing to use to scoop it up. And it was cold. If it was hot, it might have been. And it's sort of like the cold shrimp. I don't like the cold shrimp either. I like the hot shrimp. And you saw my message. I got the your tiger shrimp at Cagney's and had it. Then they grilled it for me. So I got the appetizer that you like, but heated, which was quite good.
All right. So tell us about Iceland tomorrow. What are you going to be doing?
Let me finish one more thing. We ate at Indulge last night,
Okay.
and that is pretty cool. That it's not a real big venue, but it's fairly close with all the little different food booths that generate food. But you sit down and have a tablet, and you can order whatever you want from each of the different sources, and they bring it to your table. And we had a regular beef brisket entree from Q, and I had some Indian bread, which I forget the name of it, from the Indian place that was really good, and deviled eggs from Q, and there was a couple other things. But I liked the food that last night at that place better than the Palomar. So we'll be back there again. We haven't been to the main dining room yet. Tonight we eat at Food Republic. I've never eaten at a Food Republic before, so
Yeah.
we'll see that. So going on to your question, Iceland originally we were going to be at 2 o'clock, but due to the change, we're getting in. Captain had estimated 8 o'clock, but we're ahead of schedule, so he said we should be pulling in about 6 a.m. tomorrow.
Okay.
And the shore excursion people had said they contacted the vendors once they knew of the change on Friday, and asking if they could do any rescheduling to get tour started earlier. And there was several that had agreed that they would be able to do it shortly after 8. So I booked a Golden Circle tour that starts at 8:30, and I think it's roughly 5 or 6 hours. And that they claim is one of the best tours. I didn't look at the details, so I can't tell you exactly what I'm going to be doing other than seeing some of the best spots in Iceland,
Okay.
which I would assume might be volcanoes and other things. And I had a private tour that somebody on the Cruise Creek roll call had set up at 6 o'clock, and it involves going to like a spa type thing. So I'm thinking maybe hot springs spa with some different stuff they stick on your face or skin and stuff. And that when that's done, then we around 9 o'clock they'll pick us up to do a search for the Northern Lights. I just hope the clouds break a little bit so we can actually see something. Which sounded neat. And then we stay overnight, and the next day I have a long tour that's like in a monster van. So it's like a van with these huge tires, but it's going to one of the glaciers.
Okay.
So I'll be out walking on the glacier. So I'll have some good pictures to forward to you after this.
Good. Awesome. All right, and hopefully we can catch you for another live stream after you leave Reykjavik, maybe before you get back to the States to catch up with everything.
Yeah, Friday might be a good day.
Okay. We'll shoot for it.
Yep.
All right, hot air.
Okay,
Tom,
thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye, Chillie.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. And of course, that was Hot Air Tom and Cindy. I taped the interview with them yesterday afternoon as they were approaching Iceland. All right, couple things to cover real quickly before we get to the news. Rochelle and the gang that she's with were in Munich for Oktoberfest. And as you can see, even though this is a church group, they're enjoying the beer in Germany for Oktoberfest. Of course, that's a necessity if you're over there. If you have never been to an Oktoberfest in Bavaria, anywhere in that part of the world, you need to try to do that. They are just fantastic. All right. Cindy and the girls were in Ajaccio, which is Corsica. That's, of course, part of France. And it's a lovely little port town. And, of course, that is the epic, Norwegian epic that they are on. And then finally, Lizzie Lou unfortunately got back to Southampton this morning It was a short cruise, 4-day cruise. So she did get to do a sunrise over Southampton and her last cup before she leaves. So, by the way, she has posted day 3 on her site, so you need to go check that out. Her dailies are just fantastic. I wish I could copy that. I haven't been able to come up with the right sequence yet. All right, I'll be back with today's news right after a word from one of our network sponsors. All right, of course, we're going to be talking about Hurricane Ian this morning. By the way, that was yesterday hitting Grand Cayman. Grand Cayman is still getting a lot of the southern portions of this, the still rain and wind and high surf and storm surge on the backside, even though it's gone on. Of course, Ian is now, as a matter of fact, is probably just about now getting ready to leave Cuba. But Hurricane Ian made landfall in western Cuba this morning as it continues barreling toward Florida, where residents in some of the coastal areas are already evacuating. The Category 3 storm is packing maximum sustained winds of 125 miles an hour and life-threatening storm surge. According to its projected path, Ian is expected to emerge over the southeastern Gulf of Mexico and continue churning toward Florida, passing west of the Keys later today, then approach the state's west coast late Wednesday or into Thursday. Projections show the Tampa Bay area could get the first direct hit from a hurricane since 1921, and the impact on the region could be devastating, especially with the storm surge. And the state released this morning that they think the target's going to be Venice. I'm not sure where Venice is, but anyway, we're going to have to watch this one closely. Probably will be a Category 4 by the time it gets just a few minutes into the Gulf, and then it's probably going to hit Florida as a 4. All right, so as of 10 o'clock this morning, the center of Hurricane Ian was located 10 miles northeast of the city of Pinar del Rio, about 130 miles southwest of the Dry Tortugas. Ian is moving forward toward the north at 12 miles an hour, and this motion is expected to continue today. A turn toward the northeast with a reduction in forward speed is forecast for tonight and Wednesday. So this is the path that it's going on. As you can see, it's going to have a slight turn. You can also, it doesn't really show that well on this rendering, but they're projecting that this storm slows down to a crawl. So that can just increase the damage in the we'll call it the Tampa Bay area, wherever it hits along the Gulf Coast. Like I say, it should be a Category 4. Currently, it's 125 miles an hour, which of course is a Category 3. A little change in strength was expected while it moved over Cuba, but it's expected to strengthen later this morning after it merges over the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. Ian is forecast to approach the west coast of Florida, of course, as a major hurricane, either Category 3, more likely Category 4. The minimum pressure at 10 o'clock was 950 millibars. This is going to be a massive storm surge event. Some of the keys on the storm surge, the Anclot River to the middle of Longboat Key, including Tampa Bay, 5 to 10 feet of storm surge. The Suwannee River to the Anclote River, 5 to 8 feet of storm surge. Middle of Longboat Key to Inglewood, 5 to 8 feet. Inglewood to Bonita Beach, including Charlotte Harbor, 4 to 7 feet. Bonita Beach to East Cape Sable, 3 to 5 feet. Flagler, Volusia County line to Altamara Sound, including St. Johns River, 2 to 4 feet. East Cape Sable, Florida to Card Sound Bridge, including Florida Bay, 2 to 4 feet. Florida Keys, including the Dry Tortuga, 2 to 4 feet. India Pass to Osceola River, 1 to 3 feet. The deepest water will occur along the immediate coastline, of course, but right of the center is where the surge will be accompanied by large waves. Surge-related flooding depends on the relative timeliness of the surge and the tidal cycle. It can vary greatly over short distances. So you just need to stay in touch with your local officials on the storm surge. And by all means, folks, if they have recommended evacuation, evacuate. Don't try to ride this out. This is could be just a massive, massive, disastrous storm. Storm surge could rise water levels by as much as 9 to 14 feet above normal tide levels in areas from Cuba all the way to Tampa Bay. Rainfall. Western Cuba could get up to 16 inches. Of course, these rains may produce flash flooding and mudslides in the higher areas of terrain over western Cuba. The Florida Keys and South Florida up to 8 inches. Central West Florida up to 24 inches, folks. Now, so figure the storm surge and 24 inches of rain. If you get the worst of it, that's a lot of water. Northeast Florida and the remainder of Central Florida Peninsula up to 12 inches. Heavy rainfall is expected to affect the southeastern part of the United States Friday and Saturday. So you're going to have considerable flash and urban flooding from this. There's a possibility of tornadoes through tomorrow. And of course, the surf is just going to be awful. Swells are likely to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions anywhere along the coast of Florida and the east coast of the United States. Currently, the Port of Tampa Bay is preparing for the worst. However, right now, it's at condition X-ray, which indicates gale force winds of 39 to 54 miles per hour are expected within the next 48 hours. Under this condition, the port remains open to all daily operations. That may have changed since I got this information earlier this morning. If the port advances to condition Yankee with gale force winds expected within 24 hours, vessels must begin departing the port, cargo operations must prepare to cease, and the ships planning to arrive at the port must seek a different destination. With the hurricane's expected track turning north and likely north-northeast, it's likely that Port Tampa will advance to condition Yankee within the time frame. Condition Zulu, the highest level of concern, closes all port operations and will be set if gale force winds are expected within 12 hours. As Port Tampa Bay only has one cruise ship currently home ported, that of course is the Carnival Paradise, changes in Port Tampa Bay's hurricane readiness will not impact cruises at the moment. The cruise most likely to be impacted by Hurricane Ian will be the September 29th sailing, which is a 4-night sailing. Now keep in mind, folks, when you have a situation like this where the 29th could be the worst day in Tampa, that's going to affect the folks that are on the Carnival Paradise now and the folks expecting to get on the Carnival Paradise on the 29th. So you got 2 loads of people to consider. At this time, there have been no changes on that sailing, but it's very possible that that's going to happen. So you need to stay in touch with Carnival, your travel agents, or your local news sources, and just hope that something happens, that this isn't as bad as it looks. Other Florida cruise ports have also begun storm preparations for they're necessary for their locations. Port Canaveral is in condition whiskey. Port Miami is condition X-ray. Port Everglades condition X-ray, and Jacksonville is also condition whiskey. Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, Norwegian, MSC, and Virgin have already announced changes to itineraries for current and upcoming cruises. Carnival Cruise Line has said it will wait and see how the storm develops, with possible itinerary changes to be announced today. Some of the changes involve Western Caribbean cruises canceling calls, and they hope to be hanging out in the Gulf of Mexico well away from the storm. Others have flipped itineraries to Eastern Caribbean and Bahama ports. All Bahama ports are open, and the Eastern Caribbean ports have done just a magnificent job in getting ready to accept cruise ships again. That includes San Juan, Haiti, ports in the Dominican Republic, St. Thomas, and Tortola. So there's already plans being made for some of the Western Caribbean ships to go into those ports as a change in port of call. So that's where we stand on Ian. And folks, by all means, if your local people have told you to evacuate, please evacuate. Don't take a chance. I know it's not easy. I know you're going to be in traffic jams, but get out of harm's way, guys. All right, Canada, we talked about this a couple times last week. In a long-awaited move, the government of Canada will officially be removing COVID-19 related travel restrictions as of October the 1st, including vaccinations, testing, quarantine, and the use of the ArriveCam app of submitting health information online prior to arriving in the country. Both cruise travel and air travel are included in this easing, which will make it much more convenient for travelers to prepare for cruise vacations that either depart from or visit Canadian ports. Cruises departing from Canadian home ports or with visits planned to Canadian ports of call prior to October 1st still will need to follow the required testing, vaccination, and documentation protocols. However, we're getting pretty close to the 1st, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. While the former restrictions will be removed for all travelers in just a few days, Canadian authorities are still urging caution as cold and flu season approaches. With the easing of restrictions, which is, of course, welcome news and continues returning the cruise travel industry to pre-pandemic guidelines. Excuse me. All travelers, excuse me. All travelers should be aware that COVID is still present and may yet evolve to require additional precautions. All right. That is the Luminosa. The Luminosa has now, it's been revealed, the changes to the former Costa ship. She is now sailing on her way to pick up crew. to prepare for its first sailing. The ship's hull, of course, has the new paint job that's been seen on many other Carnival ships that have gone through dry docks recently. It also has another feature, however, that is unique to the ship. The ship's straight line funnel has been repainted with Carnival colors reminiscent of the classic funnel from the line's very first vessels, the original Mardi Gras, Carnival, and Festival. I was on all three of those ships. The iconic whale tail funnel was first introduced in 1982 aboard Tropical. I was on Tropical 3 times. The first cruise ship specifically built for Carnival Cruise Line was, of course, the Tropical. Because Carnival Luminosa is retaining some of her Costa Cruises features, it was decided she would not receive the entirely new funnel like found on most Carnival ships now. And finally, in the world of the news today, which there wasn't a whole lot, Norwegian Dawn decided to unexpectedly skip its first scheduled port of call after embarking the day prior from Southampton, New England. England, not New England, sorry. Norwegian Dawn embarked on a 10-night British Isles itinerary, heading to its initial stop in Portland, but ditched the port at 7 a.m. Yesterday, heading to Cork, Ireland instead. The reason given was high winds. They were calling for somewhere in the vicinity of 30 mile per hour winds. So the captain decided it was just not within the best interests of his ship, crew, and passengers to go into that. Based on the weather patterns, Norwegian Dawn chose to play it safe before stopping at the island connected to Weymouth, dodging the port and missing its day ashore, supposedly departing about 5 p.m. Yesterday. The ship is set to spend today in Cork, tomorrow in Dublin, and the 28th in Belfast, completing the stops in Ireland. For the next 3 days leading into October, this itinerary will make stops in Scotland, visiting Kirkwall, Invergordon, and Edinburgh, completing days 6 to 8. In hopes that the itinerary makes no further changes, Norwegian Dawn will spend its final days of the itinerary in Bruges, Belgium on October 4th and make its last stop in Amsterdam on October the 5th. So that's the news portion for today. So let's hop over and see who, if anybody, is fussing at me in the chat room. So, yeah, Hot Air Tom, this just kind of surprised me because I know he's on a tour bus, how he's getting a signal. Mike's with us. Good morning, Mike. Hope all is well with you. Yes, it is. Thank you. Hi, Chillie from Carol. Hi, Carol. Katie's with us, securing her stuff at home, heading to my sister's early this afternoon. Don't blame you, Katie. Hot Air Tom says, we are at a stop at Thingvellir, resting a bit. We get back on the ship at 5 p.m. Then I have another tour to Sky Harbor, then search for Northern Lights. Yo, Brooklyn is in the house. Hi, Eddie. Good to have you back again, my friend. Nikki is with us. Hi, Nikki. It's good to see you, Tom. Dennis is here. Nayan Indian Bread, and Hot Air Tom says that's it. Dennis Blue Lagoon, I don't know. Katie says hi to Eddie. And Nikki. Hot Air Tom says Sky Harbor is a spa type place. I don't think it's Blue Lagoon. Okay. Sky Harbor instead of Blue Lagoon. Absolutely avoid booking NCL Epic. Worst ship design. So horrible that the sister ship was canceled. I've heard that before. It's going to be interesting when Cindy and the girls get home, what they thought of it. Cindy has been critical of a couple things with Norwegian, even though she started off being a big fan of Norwegian. So it's going to be interesting to see what she has to say about that, Dennis, as well. But you're not the first person I've heard that from. Found out schools are closed Friday as well. Not surprised on that. If you're in its path, book a room. The resorts are built above and beyond code to withstand the strongest storms. They also generate their own power and water and plenty of food. Okay, didn't know that. Katie's off the rest of the week. She's in Orlando, of course. Going a little north to stay with my sister, so I'm not by myself. Katie, if you stay on Walt Disney World property, leave the car on a sheltered upper level of the car parks at Disney Springs and take the coach back to the resort. Pets are allowed with state of emergency. That's good information to have, Dennis. I was not aware. You're providing some content here for my channel that I was not aware of. So I do appreciate that. Storm might be another Andrew in the making, so I hope everyone is ready. Another pro tip, there is very little queue time at the Speedway petrol stations on Walt Disney property, and their storage tanks are so huge they don't run out of fuel. Wow, good to know that as well. Weekends at Disney just left on their Disney cruise yesterday. Be interesting to see. I'm sure they're going east. A few years ago, their 3-night cruise turned into a 6-night cruise because of a hurricane. Yeah. I had a 7-night turned into a 9-night once. It's the only time I was in a storm. Now it's out of New Orleans. The proper guidance is to continue wearing a mask when around others, and there is a new variant to be cautious of. Costa, not Costa. Costa. Wow. I've been saying that wrong all along. Costa. Costa Cruises. Thank you, Dennis. Man, I'm appreciating that. Dennis, thank you very much. That's just awesome. I like having people that will provide good content for my channel and information for me. I will try to remember that. And I will make notes on Walt Disney World properties for storms in the future. So good to know. Their cruise was extended because Florida ports. Yeah, that's the same thing, Dennis, that happened with me. And this was, a couple weeks, maybe 18 days or something like that before Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. And I was out there sailing around trying to dodge that. And then Dennis hit New Orleans, and New Orleans was totally closed down for that before Katrina. And we were 2 days extra at sea before we could get back into New Orleans. So yeah, that was a 7-day cruise that turned into a 9-day cruise. So it happens. And that's, clearly, folks, these kind of problems happen this time of year. The balance to that is most of us that cruise a lot know that you can get bargains more this time of year than at other times. And many of us try to save money when we can. So we book at this time of year. So, but that's the way it is. All right, guys. I will stay on top of things through the day today. You can just count on we're going to have a couple days that's going to be dominated by weather now till we see how bad it's going to hit Florida. Folks, I am seriously thinking about all of you guys down there. I want all of you to be safe as possible. Do whatever you can to keep yourself and your family and pets and everything safe, please. All right, guys, that's going to wrap me up for today. I will talk to everybody again tomorrow at the latest, if not sometime between now and then. I'll let you know. So for now, guys, this is the old fat travel guy. You guys have a fantastic day. Stay safe, stay healthy. Think about cruising, and hopefully one day soon we'll all get together on the high seas. Only maybe on the high seas, not with a hurricane coming bearing down on us. So have a great day. See y'all tomorrow at the latest.
I regularly post videos on all facets of the travel and cruise industry. So if you like to keep up with the latest in cruise ships, ports of call, cruises themselves, Chillie chats, and travel and cruise industry news, just hit the little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when a new video is up or we go live. This video was produced by Chillie's Cruises.